But here is something that will mess with your head. If she took you for granted, she probably did not regret it when it ended. She regretted it later. And if you are doing what most men do right after a breakup, you are accidentally making sure that regret never shows up at all. If you have ever lain awake asking yourself, did I actually matter to her? Stay with me. Because what I am about to break down is going to answer that question in a way you have never heard before. First, let us clear something up. Being taken for granted is not about obvious disrespect. It is not the big arguments, not the name-calling, not the moment you can point to and say, there, that is the problem. It is quieter than that. It is the slow erosion of your emotional impact, the point where your presence stops registering. Early in a relationship, your attention carries weight because it is not assumed. When you pull back, she notices. When you show up, it shifts the energy. When you are upset, it creates a reaction. But over time, that effect fades. Your presence becomes expected instead of meaningful. She stops feeling like she has to show up a certain way to keep you engaged. You are just there. And here is why that happens. The brain stops paying close attention to anything predictable. It is not personal. It is not even conscious. When access to something feels guaranteed, the brain deprioritizes it. Being taken for granted does not mean she thought you had no value. It means she stopped believing you were at risk of leaving. That is the shift. And it is a brutal one. Because from your side, you were reliable, you were emotionally present, you were doing everything a good partner is supposed to do. But when consistency is not paired with clear standards, the brain learns that access to you requires zero effort. If your favorite restaurant started giving away free food every day, you would stop feeling like it was special. You would just show up whenever. That is what was happening to you. She responded slower, checked in less, stopped pushing to fix problems. She no longer felt urgency because your presence no longer felt like something that could actually be lost. This is also why regret does not show up right away. The brain cannot regret losing something it still believes it can have. Regret needs two things: real distance and real contrast. Being taken for granted removes both. Now, here's where the timeline breaks completely. Here's where most men get blindsided. The breakup happens. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you are expecting her to feel it, to show some sign that this actually meant something. Instead, she seems fine, calm, maybe even lighter. And that reaction, or the absence of one, hits harder than the breakup itself. Because now you are not just dealing with the loss, you are questioning whether any of it was real. Here is what you need to understand. The absence of regret, right? After a breakup does not mean the relationship meant nothing. It means her emotional timeline is completely different from yours. For most women, the grieving happened before the breakup, not after it. By the time she ended things, she had already spent weeks, sometimes months, running through the decision in her head. She replayed the arguments, she cataloged the patterns, she quietly detached. So by the time she said it out loud, the breakup was not the beginning of her loss. It was the conclusion of a process she had already lived through. She already grieved you. You just did not know it was happening. That is why the aftermath looks so strange. She seems more settled, maybe even happier. Not because she is celebrating, but because she is finally released from the internal tension of someone who spent months deciding whether to stay or leave. That weight is gone. Of course she seems lighter. Meanwhile, you just got hit by something you never saw coming. And here is the other piece that matters. Right after the breakup, even if contact stops, her brain does not register permanent loss. Not yet. Because somewhere in the background, there is still a sense of optional access, the belief, even subconscious, that she could reach out if she wanted to. And that belief is exactly what blocks regret from forming. This is also why reaching out immediately almost always backfires. When you text, when you try to fix it, when you reopen the door, you confirm that access is still available. And if access is still available, regret has no reason to show up. You are literally preventing the one thing that might have made her pause. Now, here is the part most men are not ready for. Some women regret it fully. They see exactly what they lost, and they still do not come back. And understanding this one thing will save you from waiting on something that was never going to happen. Regret and return are two completely separate processes. A woman can fully recognize that she misjudged your value and still make a deliberate decision not to come back. Once you understand why, you will stop waiting. First, identity protection. Coming back means admitting, visibly to the people around her, that leaving was wrong, that her judgment was off. Protecting that self-image can feel more urgent than reopening something she genuinely misses. Second, social accountability. Returning means walking back into conversations where she already committed to a version of reality. And reversing that, even when she feels it, carries a cost most people underestimate. Third, the fear of being wrong twice. Even when the regret is real, the risk of repeating the same emotional cycle can outweigh the desire to fix it. And then there's the kind of regret most men never expect. Some women do not regret the relationship ending. They regret the way they evaluated you. That kind of regret does not reach out. It just changes how she shows up. Next time, here is where it all comes together. After being taken for granted, men do one of two things. They chase harder, or they disappear completely. Both are reactions, and neither restores value. So here is what actually does. The first shift is understanding the dynamic, not blame, clarity. Because patterns repeated unconsciously do not fix themselves, the correction starts with restraint, not silence as punishment, space, real space, the kind that removes assumed access. That is recalibration. The second shift is standards, not spoken, enforced. Behavior determines access, effort drops, your availability adjusts, respect fades, your engagement follows. No speeches, just alignment. And now, the third shift, the one most men rush past. Stop tying your worth to her response, because this is where everything either stabilizes or collapses again. If her reaction is the measurement of your value, then your value was never yours to begin with, and the real problem, the real shift is internal. It is asking, not does she see it, but am I operating from it? Because when you are not, you overextend, you tolerate, you stay quiet when you should lead. You absorb discomfort until it becomes the baseline. And then you call it love. That is where this breaks. Not in her reaction, in your standard. Fix that, and everything downstream changes. Stop waiting for regret, waiting for closure, waiting for proof. That keeps you anchored to the same dynamic. Forward motion does not require her. It requires direction. Put your energy where it compounds. Purpose, discipline, growth. You do not need bitterness. You do not need noise. You need alignment. The strongest position after being taken for granted is not anger. It is not indifference. It is calm self-respect. The kind that does not need to announce itself. The kind that just shows up differently.